November 1443, Niš, Serbia. The battle is chaos. Jerry Castrioti, known to every soldier here as Scanderbeg. The Sultan's Albanian wolf sits on his warhorse at the edge of the Ottoman lines. Around him, kettle drums thunder, war horns scream. The Christian coalition under Władysław III and John Hunyadi is tearing into the Sultan's forces with the desperation of men who know this might be their last chance to stop the Ottoman tide. Scanderbeg wears Ottoman armor, fights under Ottoman banners, commands Ottoman cavalry. And he's about to throw it all away. 28 years. That's how long he's served the empire that took him as a boy. He's risen through the ranks, commanded armies, earned land grants in Macedonia and Bulgaria. The Sultan himself trusts him. Everyone trusts him, which is exactly why what happens next will work. He turns to the 300 men closest to him, warriors who've bled beside him, who owe him personal loyalty, and gives the signal. They peel away from the Ottoman lines, not in retreat, not in panic, just gone. By the time anyone notices, Scanderbeg is riding west toward home, toward rebellion. For the next 25 years, this man will humiliate the most powerful empire on earth. He'll win battles he has no business winning, defend a fortress that should fall a dozen times over, turn the mountainous backwater of Albania into the graveyard of Ottoman ambitions. But here's the thing about stories like this. They don't start with heroism. They start with a choice that can't be undone. A choice made in the noise and blood of a battlefield, where empires collide and men become legends. Or corpses. Before we go further, if this story grips you the way it gripped me while researching it, please hit the like button and drop a comment. It genuinely helps us reach more people who love history told like this. Now, let's go back, because to understand why Scanderbeg deserted at Niš, you need to understand how the Ottomans forged him in the first place. You need to see the boy before he became the weapon. You need to feel the weight of what he's about to betray. Albanian highlands. The boy is 10 years old when his world ends. Jerry Castrioti stands in the cold stone courtyard of his father's fortress. The autumn wind cuts through the mountains, carrying the smell of coming snow. He watches 3 Ottoman emissaries dismount from horses that look too welfed, too groomed for men who've traveled mountain roads for days. They move with the confidence of men who've delivered this ultimatum 100 times before. His father, John Castriot, stands beside him. John is one of the most powerful Albanian lords, a man whose fortress commands crucial mountain passes, whose word can raise armies, whose alliances keep the fragile balance of power in these highlands from collapsing into chaos. But none of that matters right now. The lead emissary unfolds. A document, the Sultan's seal, catches the weak autumn light. The terms are read aloud in Turkish, then translated into Albanian. The boy will go to the Sultan's court, not as a guest, as a hostage, as insurance against his father's continued loyalty to the Sublime Porte. This is how the Ottoman Empire operates in the Balkans. Conquest isn't just about taking territory. It's about transforming it. They take the sons of nobles, raise them in the imperial palace, teach them to think like Ottomans, fight like Ottomans, pray like Ottomans, dream like Ottomans. Then they send them back as administrators, generals, enforcers of the Sultan's will. It's brilliant. It's efficient. It's devastatingly effective because these boys don't just learn Ottoman ways, they become Ottoman. The empire doesn't need to garrison every castle, police every village, crush every hint of resistance. It just needs to make the conquered nobilities own children into its tools. John Castrioti has tested the boundaries before. He's pushed back against Ottoman tax collectors, delayed sending tribute, maintained more autonomy than most Albanian lords dare claim. The Sublime Porte tolerates a certain amount of this. Administrative friction is expected in a multi-threntic empire that stretches from the Danube to the Euphrates. But there are limits, and John has reached them. The bill is now due. And the currency. Is his son, his heir, the boy who carries the Castrioti bloodline, the child who's supposed to inherit these fortresses, these alliances, this precarious power. Krujë doesn't cry. It's been raised in these mountain strongholds, where winters kill the weak and enemies probe every border. Crying is a luxury. Weakness is a death sentence. He's watched his father negotiate with rival lords, manage blood feuds, balance Ottoman demands against the need to maintain respect among Albanian nobility. He knows what this moment means. He steps forward, kisses his father's hand. The gesture is formal, final. John's face is stone, but his hand trembles slightly just for a second. Krujë turns toward the waiting horses, doesn't look back. Looking back won't change anything. Looking back is for children who don't understand that some doors only open one way. The road to Ada is long, it's dusty, it's irreversible, and with every mile, the boy from the Albanian highlands becomes something else, something the empire needs, something his father and Albania will one day face across a battlefield. Edirne, the Ottoman capital, the beating heart of an empire that spans 3 continents. The Endurance School isn't a school the way you'd recognize it. It's not about books and lectures and gentle tutoring. It's a machine, a furnace designed to take raw material. Christian boys from the Balkans, the Caucasus, captured nobility. The brightest children identified through the dev system and transformed them into the Ottoman elite. The palace complex is vast courtyards within courtyards, training grounds, libraries, mosques, barracks, gardens where important. Officials conduct quiet conversations that determine the fate of provinces. The curriculum is relentless. Languages. First, Turkish, because it's the language of command, of imperial administration, of the Sultan's court. Persian, because it's the language of poetry, diplomacy, refined culture. Arabic, because it's the language of the Quran, of Islamic law, of the religious foundations that legitimize the empire's existence. Not just conversational fluency, not just enough to get by. Complete mastery. You'll read military dispatches in Turkish, negotiate treaties in Persian, interpret Islamic law in Arabic. The empire is vast, multi-ethnic, multilingual. Its administrators need to operate seamlessly across. All of it? Warfare comes next. The composite bow, laminated wood and horn and sinew. Able to punch through armor at distances European longbows can't match. The curved cage saber designed for cavalry charges. The curve allowing devastating slashing attacks from horseback. Lance technique, shield work. But weapons are just tools. The real education is in tactics. The doctrines of Turk steppe cavalry refined over centuries. How to fee and retreat and lure an enemy into a killing zone. How to use terrain. How to coordinate cavalry wings with a central infantry mass. How to read an opponent's formation and identify the weak point. Then theology, the Quran studied verse by verse. Islamic law, its principles, its applications, its flexibility. The empire isn't just a military machine. It's a civilization that claims to embody God's will on earth. To serve it properly, you need to understand not just how it fights, but why it exists. Statecraft rounds out the education. How to govern a province where 5 languages are spoken and 3 religions coexist uneasily. How to collect taxes without sparking rebellion. How to administer justice in ways that maintain order while respecting local customs. How to identify talent and crush threats. Krujë Castriot absorbs it all. He's not just competent, he's exceptional. The other boys struggle with Arabic grammar. Krujë masters it. They fumble with cavalry tactics. He executes them flawlessly. They memorize Quranic verses. He understands their interpretations, their implications for governance and law. The tutors. Notice, they always notice talent. This entire system is designed to identify and cultivate exceptional individuals to ensure the empire's elite is staffed by the best minds, regardless of their birth. But more importantly, Sultan Murad too notices. Murad is no religious fanatic. He's a pragmatist who understands that empires aren't built on zeal alone. They're built on competence, loyalty, the cold arithmetic of rewarding talent and crushing incompetence. He's fought wars on multiple fronts, managed succession crises, balanced the demands of military expansion against the need for administrative stability. He sees something in the Albanian boy: potential, intelligence, a capacity for command that can't be taught, only cultivated. By his early 20s, Gjurj is commanding cavalry units, leading campaigns in Anatolia against rival Turkish beyks, fighting in the Balkans against Serbian and Hungarian forces. He's granted Timar's landholdings in Macedonia and Bulgaria. These aren't symbolic gestures. They're marks of real trust, real status. Somewhere in those years, amid the smoke of battlefields and the whispered prayers in garrison mosques, someone gives him a nickname: Scanderbeg, Scanderbeg, Lord Alexander. After Alexander the Great, the Macedonian conqueror who carved an empire from the Mediterranean to the Indies, who was never defeated in battle, who became legend. It's meant as a compliment, a recognition of his tactical brilliance, his command presence, his victories. It will become an irony so sharp it cuts. While Gjurj Kastriot commands Ottoman armies in Anatolia, his father defies them in Albania. John Kastriot raises his banner, gathers his forces, refuses to send tribute. It's not a grand uprising with speeches about freedom and independence. It's a regional power play, an attempt to claw back some of the autonomy that's been steadily eroded by Ottoman administrators who keep tightening their grip on Albanian affairs. He fights for months. He holds out in his mountain fortresses, and he loses. The Ottoman response is methodical. They don't execute him. That would create a martyr, potentially spark wider rebellion. Instead, they annex his lands piece by piece, strip his administrative authority, garrison his fortresses with Turkish troops, reduce him from a powerful lord to a nominal figurehead. He tries again. Same strategy, same hope that maybe this time other Albanian lords will join him, that maybe Hungarian forces will provide support, that maybe the Ottomans are distracted enough by wars elsewhere that a determined resistance can succeed. Same result: more land lost, more power surrendered, more Ottoman soldiers occupying Kastrioti fortresses. And both times, his son does nothing. Gjurj Kastrioti, now a decorated Ottoman officer, a man the Sultan trusts, with armies and land grants, stays loyal to the empire that took him. He doesn't join his father's rebellion, doesn't send secret aid, doesn't even protest. Why? The sources don't tell us. History leaves this gap, and that gap is haunting. Maybe it's pragmatism. Gjurj has seen what happens to failed rebels. He's probably participated in crushing them. He knows the Ottoman military machine, knows how efficiently it grinds down resistance. His father's rebellions are doomed from the start. Maybe it's psychological. After 18 years in the Endurance embrace, 18 years of Ottoman education, Ottoman campaigns, Ottoman identity, maybe his father's resistance looks like the dying thrashing of an old world that no longer makes sense. Maybe he's internalized the empire's logic so completely that regional Albanian autonomy seems provincial, backward, pointless. Or maybe, just maybe, he's waiting. Waiting for the perfect moment, for a real opportunity, for the kind of crack in the empire's armor that would allow not just rebellion, but successful rebellion. His father rebels from passion, from pride, from the stubborn refusal to accept diminished status. Gjurj is learning to think like an empire, and empires don't move on passion. They move on calculation. The calculation changes. November 1443. The Ottoman Empire is fracturing. It's not collapsing. The empire is far too strong, too well organized for that. But fracturing under pressure from multiple directions simultaneously. In the east, rival Turkish beyliks probe the borders. In Anatolia, local governors jockey for position. And in the Balkans, a Christian coalition is forming. Władysław II of Poland and Hungary, backed by the brilliant military commander John Hunyadi, has launched a crusade. The stakes are existential. If the Christians can break through, if they can shatter Ottoman control of the Balkans, the empires, European territories could collapse. Trade routes would be cut. Prestige would evaporate. Subject populations would rebel. Sultan Murad II mobilizes everything he has, every reliable commander, every veteran unit. The cream of Ottoman military power marches to meet the Christian coalition at Niš in what is now southeastern Serbia. Scanderbeg is among them, commanding cavalry wearing Ottoman armor, fighting under Ottoman banners. But something has changed. Maybe it's the intelligence he's gathered. Whispers from Albania about growing resentment against Ottoman rule, about lords who remember the old alliances, about populations exhausted by tribute demands and military conscription. Maybe it's the opportunity he sees. The Ottoman forces, stretched thin, attention focused on the Hungarian threat, resources committed to this single decisive battle. Maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe after 28 years of serving the empire that took him, something finally breaks. Or maybe something finally resolves. Whatever the reason, Scanderbeg makes his decision before the battle even begins. It's going to desert. But desertion without a plan is just suicide with extra steps. He needs more than escape. He needs a base of operations, a symbol, a fortress whose capture will announce to every Albanian lord, every village elder, every mountain warrior that the Castrioti name is back. That Ottoman control is no longer absolute. That resistance is possible. He needs Krujë. The fortress sits in central Albania, strategically vital. It commands mountain passes and trade routes. Heavily garrisoned by Ottoman troops, taking it by force with 300 men is impossible. So he won't take it by force. He'll take it by deception. The Battle of Niš is chaos. Christian and Ottoman forces slam into each other with the desperation of men who know this battle could determine the fate of the Balkans for generations. Cavalry charges, infantry formations collapsing under pressure, archers sending volleys into enemy ranks, war horns screaming commands that are half lost in the noise. In that chaos, Scanderbeg and his 300 men simply leave. They don't flee in panic. They don't break ranks and scatter. They peel away from the Ottoman lines with the discipline of veteran soldiers executing a planned maneuver. By the time anyone in the Ottoman command structure notices, by the time someone realizes that Scanderbeg's cavalry unit isn't where it's supposed to be, they're gone. Scanderbeg turns his horse west toward the Albanian highlands, toward home. The 300 men with him are hand-picked. Warriors who fought beside him for years. Men whose loyalty is personal, not institutional. Soldiers who trust his judgment more than they trust the Sultan's banners. They ride hard. Every hour of delay increases the chance that Ottoman forces will be dispatched to intercept them. Every mile closer to Albania is a mile closer to safety. But safety isn't the goal. The goal is Krujë, and to take Krujë, Scanderbeg will need more than speed and loyal soldiers. He'll need to become what the Ottomans taught him to be, a master of deception. Scanderbeg's 28 years in Ottoman service taught him many things. One of the most valuable is this: the empire runs on documents. Orders flow from the Sultan through a vast bureaucratic network. Governors receive sealed instructions. Military commanders get written directives. Tax collectors carry official authorizations. Everything is documented. Everything carries a seal. Everything follows protocol. The system is sophisticated, efficient, and absolutely dependent on trust. When a document bears the Sultan's seal, you obey it. Questioning it is insubordination. Delaying it is treasonous. Forge the right document and you can move mountains. Approaching Krujë, Scanderbeg carries a letter. The details of how he obtained or created it are lost to history. Maybe he stole a genuine seal during his years in the Sultan's service. Maybe he had one made by a skilled craftsman. Maybe he simply relied on his reputation as a trusted Ottoman officer to provide authentication. What matters is that the letter looks legitimate, sounds legitimate, feels legitimate. It bears the Sultan's seal. It's written in the formal Turkish, used for imperial communications. It orders the Ottoman governor of Krujë to surrender the fortress to Scanderbeg for strategic redeployment. Something about consolidating forces, reorganizing defenses in light of the Christian crusade, administrative restructuring. The specific justification doesn't matter. Ottoman governors receive these kinds of orders regularly. Troops are moved. Garrisons are reorganized. Fortresses change hands for strategic reasons that make sense to the Sultan's military planners in EDA, but might seem opaque to a regional governor. The governor of Krujë receives the letter. He recognizes Scanderbeg's name. Who wouldn't? The man is one of the Sultan's most decorated commanders. He reads the orders. They seem odd, maybe, but not impossible. Not obviously fraudulent. And here's the crucial thing. Refusing to obey could mean his head. If the orders are genuine and he delays, he's guilty of insubordination during wartime. The penalty for that is death. The gates open. Scanderbeg and his 300 men enter Krujë. They're welcomed as Ottoman forces given access to the garrison, offered food and quarters. Then they move fast, ruthless, efficient. The governor is seized. Whether he's executed immediately or imprisoned depends on which source you trust. But either way, he's neutralized. His officers are disarmed. The garrison troops outnumbered. Surprised, leaderless, are overwhelmed before they can organize resistance. The crescent banner comes down from the fortress walls. The double-headed eagle of the Castro family rises in its place. For over a decade, that eagle has been dormant. The Castrioti lands were annexed after John's failed rebellions. The family's power was broken. The name became a footnote. Not anymore. Scanderbeg stands on the walls of Krujë and looks out over the Albanian highlands. These mountains bred him. The Ottomans forged him. Now he's going to use everything they taught him to tear their control of Albania apart. But taking Krujë is just the opening move. Holding it requires more than 300 men and a captured fortress. It requires an alliance. And in 15th century Albania, where noble families have been feuding for generations, where blood grudges run deeper than any political loyalty, forging an alliance is almost as difficult as defeating the Ottoman Empire. Almost March 6, 144. Leisure, northern Albania. The Great Hall is tense. 20 Albanian lords sit around a table that's seen everything from wedding feasts to murder plots. These men don't trust each other. Some of their fathers killed each other's fathers. Blood feuds stretch back generations. Disputes over land, over honor, over insults that should have been forgotten decades ago, but never were. The Ottomans understand this. They've built their Balkan strategy on it. Keep the nobles divided. Play them against each other. Reward loyalty, punish unity. A fragmented Albania is manageable. A unified Albania is dangerous. Scanderbeg stands at the head of the table. He's changed since taking Krujë. The Ottoman armor is gone. Now he wears Albanian dress. But there's something different about him. Something that wasn't there before he left as a boy. Authority. Command, presence. The kind of gravity that comes from leading men in battle and winning. The Ottomans are coming, he says. No preamble, no flowery speeches about freedom or heritage, just fact. They won't accept what happened at Krujë. Sultan Murad will send armies, multiple armies, until we're crushed or until we submit. Lord Lear du Coggini leans back in his chair. He's one of the most powerful men here. Controls vast territories in northern Albania. Commands thousands of warriors. And what makes you think we can stop them? Your father tried twice. The Ottomans ground him into dust. My father fought alone. Scanderbeg's voice is level. He rebelled. With his own forces on his own lands, hoping others would join. They didn't. He lost because he was isolated. So we should throw our armies into your rebellion instead. This from Lord Araneti. His family has survived Ottoman rule by being carefully, strategically compliant. Paying tribute on time, avoiding trouble, survival through submission. Risk everything because you captured one fortress. Scanderbeg doesn't flinch. I spent 28 years commanding Ottoman armies. I know how they think, how they plan, how they fight. I know their tactics because I use them. I know their weaknesses because I exploited them against their enemies. He leans forward, hands flat on the table. The Ottomans are strong, but they're stretched thin. Wars in Anatolia, the Hungarian Crusade, internal power struggles right now, right at this moment. They're vulnerable in ways they haven't been in decades. If we strike together, coordinate our forces, use the mountains and terrain, we know better than any Ottoman commander ever will. We can bleed them. Make Albania too expensive to hold. And when they come anyway, Lord Zaharia asks. When Murad brings 100,000 men, then we don't meet them in open field battles, we can't win. Scanderbeg's eyes move from face to face. We fight the kind of war the mountains allow. Ambushes, heightened run attacks, fortress defense. We make every mile of Albanian territory cost them blood and gold and time. We make them question whether holding this land is worth what they'll pay for it. Silence. Lord Muzaka breaks it. You're asking us to bet everything on your ability to fight an empire. No. Scanderbeg shakes his head. I'm asking you to bet on Albanian terrain, Albanian knowledge of these mountains, and Ottoman overextension. I'm just the commander who knows how to turn those advantages into dead Ottoman soldiers. More silence, then. Lord Stefan Konojević, a Serbian noble whose lands border Albania, speaks. If we do this, we do it as equals. A league, not your personal army. Agreed? Scanderbeg says immediately. A league. Shared command structure, shared resources, shared decisions on major campaigns. And if someone breaks the alliance, do Coggins. Voice is hard. If someone takes Ottoman gold and turns traitor, then we deal with them the way we deal with any enemy. Scanderbeg doesn't elaborate. He doesn't need to. The vote isn't unanimous. It's never unanimous with Albanian lords, but enough of them agree. Enough of them see the opportunity or fear being left out. Being isolated when the Ottoman response comes. The League of Leisure is born. Military alliance, political coordination. Scanderbeg as commander-in-chief. Though technically, theoretically, he's supposed to consult the Council of Lords on major decisions. In practice, when Ottoman armies are marching toward you, there's no time for committee meetings. Walking out of the hall, Scanderbeg knows. This alliance is fragile, built on shared fear more than shared loyalty. The Ottomans will exploit every crack. They'll offer bribes, whisper promises of land and titles, threaten families, play on old feuds. Some of these lords will betray him. It's inevitable. The only question is when and whether he'll see it coming. But for now, for this moment, Albania has something it hasn't had in living memory. Unity And that's going to have to be enough because the Ottomans are coming. June 1444. Ali Pasha's army moves through Albanian territory like a slow-motion avalanche. 30,000 men, cavalry, infantry, archers, light supply wagons stretching for miles, siege equipment in case the rebels hole up in fortresses. This isn't a punitive raid, it's an extermination force. Reports reach Scanderbeg, Ottoman scouts probing mountain passes. Forward units burning villages suspected of supporting the rebellion. The message is clear: submit or be destroyed. Scanderbeg gathers his forces at a field called Torvioll. 15,000 men. It's everything the League can muster on short notice. 8,000 cavalry, Albanian and Serbian horsemen who know these mountains like their own hands. 7,000 infantry, a mix of professional soldiers and militia, men who've never fought in a major battle. Standing beside veterans of a dozen campaigns. The numbers are bad, 2-to-1 odds. In open battle, that's usually decisive. But Scanderbeg isn't planning an open battle. He spent days studying this valley, 4 kilometers wide, hills on both sides, narrow enough that Ali Pasha's numerical advantage becomes a liability. He can't deploy his full force at once. The rear ranks will spend the battle waiting, unable to contribute, watching their comrades die. June 28th, night. The Albanian camp is quiet. Soldiers rest. They've been fed. Scanderbeg made sure of that. Scraped together funds to provide decent rations. Morale matters. Tired, hungry men break. Well-fed, well-rested men stand. Orthodox priests move through the camp, offering communion, hearing confessions. Catholic chaplain do the same. Religious divisions don't matter tonight. Tonight, they're all Albanians facing an Ottoman army. A few kilometers away, the Ottoman camp is celebration. Wine flows, drums beat, soldiers laugh, confident of tomorrow's victory. Why wouldn't they be? They outnumber the rebels 2-to-1. They have better equipment, more experience, the backing of the most powerful empire in the region. This rebellion will be over by sunset tomorrow. June 29th, dawn. The Albanians form up in a crescent. It's an Ottoman formation. Scanderbeg learned its commanding Ottoman cavalry, infantry on the flanks, solid and steady, archers and footmen. In the center, the weakest point of the line. And behind the hills, invisible to Ottoman scouts, 6,000 horsemen wait. 3,000 on the extreme left, 3,000 on the extreme right. Hidden, patient, lethal. Ali Pasha sees the Albanian formation and smiles. The center is weak. No cavalry support. It's just infantry that looks thin, uncertain. He sends his cavalry forward. 3,000 Ottoman horsemen thunder across the valley floor. The ground shakes. This is what Ottoman cavalry does. Breaks infantry formations through shock and terror. And the simple physics of horses and armored men slamming into a defensive line. The Albanian center braces. Shields come up. Spears angle. Forward. Officers shout orders that are half lost in the noise of approaching hooves. The impact should shatter them, should send them running, should open a gap for the Ottoman cavalry to exploit, to wheel around and hit the flanks from behind. It doesn't. The Albanian line bends, men die, spears punching through armor, swords. Finding gaps, horses trampling the fallen. But the line holds. Shields lock. The formation absorbs the impact the way a thick wall absorbs a battering ram with damage, with losses but without breaking. The Ottoman cavalry wheels back, regroups. Maybe it's a genuine retreat. The charge failed. Time to try a different approach. Maybe it's a feigned retreat. A classic Ottoman tactic designed to lure the enemy into breaking formation and chasing, exposing themselves to a countercharge. Scanderbeg watches from the Albanian right. Its officers are shouting at him to order. A pursuit. The enemy is retreating. Press the advantage. He doesn't take the bait. He knows this trick. He's used it himself a dozen times. Ottoman cavalry retreats. The enemy chases. Then the cavalry turns and crushes the now disorganized pursuers. Hold the line. His voice carries across the battlefield. Nobody moves. Ali Pasha sees the Albanians aren't chasing, so he commits the main force. The entire Ottoman army advances. Infantry, cavalry, archers sending volleys into the Albanian positions. The valley becomes a nightmare of noise, steel on steel. Men screaming, war drums thundering, horns blaring commands. The Albanians are being pushed back slowly, meter by meter. The Ottoman numbers are starting to tell. Even with the narrow valley limiting deployment, 30,000 men press against 15,000 like a vice closing. Ali Pasha's reserve, the third line of his army, waits behind the main force. Keep fresh troops in reserve to exploit breakthroughs or shore up weak points. Scanderbeg raises his hand. On the right hill, 3,000 Albanian horsemen see the signal. They charge down the slope into the Ottoman flank. A mass of horses and steel and fury crashing into troops who didn't know they were there. The Ottoman right flank collapses. Men die before they understand what's happening. The shockwave ripples through the formation. Ali Pasha reacts instantly. He's a good commander. That's why the Sultan sent him. He wheels part of his third line to meet this new threat. Cavalry units peel away from the main battle to engage the Albanian horsemen. It stabilizes the situation barely. The Albanian right wing's charge is blunted, which is when the left wing hits 3,000 horsemen erupt from behind the left hill, but they don't hit the Ottoman flank. They drive straight into the rear of the forces engaged with the Albanian front line. Now the Ottomans are caught in a vice. Enemy in front, enemy on the right, enemy in the rear. The third line, the reserve that was supposed to be the safety net, is scattered. Half of it is engaged with the right wing. The other half is being carved apart by the left wing's charge into the rear. The valley becomes a killing floor. Ottoman soldiers trapped between multiple forces. No room to maneuver. In the narrow valley, officers screaming contradictory orders. Units losing cohesion. Men fighting individually instead of as formations. The Albanian cavalry, both wings now free after shattering the Ottoman reserves, turns inward. They charge into the rear of the main Ottoman force. Complete encirclement. The Ottomans are surrounded, pressed from all sides, fighting with desperation instead of discipline. It's not a battle anymore. It's a slaughter. When it ends, somewhere between 10 and 20,000 Ottoman soldiers are dead. The exact number gets lost in the chaos. Some sources say 12,000, others say 20. Depending on who's counting and what they're counting. Scanderbeg's losses, fewer than 5,000. Ali Pasha escapes with the remnants of his army. Maybe a third of his original force. They retreat in disorder, leaving weapons, supplies, wounded soldiers behind. The valley at Torvioll is soaked in blood, and the entire Balkan world takes notice. This rebellion isn't a minor provincial uprising. It's not going to be crushed in a single campaign season. Albania just humiliated one of the Sultan's best commanders. Used Ottoman tactics against an Ottoman army. Turned numerical disadvantage into tactical superiority. The message reaches every court from Venice to Buda to Constantinople. Skang is a threat. Scanderbeg walks the battlefield after it's over. Bodies everywhere. Ottoman soldiers, most of them, but plenty of Albanians too. Men who woke up this morning, ate breakfast, prayed, fought, died. 5,000 of them. The number is acceptable by military standards. A 5-to-1 kill ratio is extraordinary. Generals throughout history would kill for results like this. But numbers on a ledger don't convey what 5,000 dead men actually means. 5,000 families, who will receive news that their sons, brothers, fathers aren't coming home. 5,000 farms that will struggle without the labor. 5,000 empty places at tables, in beds, in village squares. Albania can't afford losses like this, not repeatedly. The total population is what? Maybe a few 100,000. Every man who dies here is irreplaceable in ways that Ottoman casualties aren't, because the Ottomans can absorb losses. The empire stretches from the Adriatic to the Persian frontier. They can conscript new soldiers from Anatolia, from the Balkans. From tributary states, lose 20,000 at Torvioll, raise 30,000 for the next campaign. Albania doesn't have that luxury. This is the math that haunts Scanderbeg as he walks through fields of corpses. He won today brilliantly. It's a kind of tactical victory that'll be studied for generations. But he's fighting an empire. And empires don't need to win brilliantly. They just need to outlast you. Still, there's no point dwelling on long-term impossibilities. Right now, in this moment, the League of Leah has breathing room. Ali Pasha's shattered army needs to retreat, regroup, explain to the Sultan how they lost to an inferior force. That buys time, months, maybe. Scanderbeg uses it to consolidate control, strengthen fortresses, recruit new soldiers to replace the 5,000 who died at Torvioll. Shore up alliances with lords who are starting to waver because some of them are always wavering. Always weighing whether loyalty to the League or submission to the Ottomans offers better survival odds, and he prepares for the next invasion because there will be a next invasion and another after that and another until either the Ottomans give up, unlikely, or until Albania runs out of soldiers. The question isn't whether the Ottomans will come back. It's when and with how many men and whether Scanderbeg can pull off another miracle when they do. May 1450. 6 years have passed since Torvioll. 6 years of constant warfare. Smaller Ottoman incursions defeated through ambushes and mountain fighting. Raids into Ottoman-held territory. Diplomatic maneuvering to keep the League together despite constant Ottoman attempts to bribe lords into betrayal. Now Sultan Murad II has had enough. He comes himself. Not a subordinate commander, not a regional governor. The Sultan 100,000 men. That's what the chronicles claim. Numbers from this era are always questionable, probably inflated. But even if you cut it in half, it's still a massive force. Professional soldiers, veteran units, siege engineers, sappers who know how to undermine walls. Artillery, massive bronze cannons that can throw stone balls weighing hundreds of pounds. The same siege train that's broken fortress after fortress across the Ottoman Empire. They march on Krujë. Scanderbeg makes a decision that looks insane. He leaves the bulk of his mobile forces outside the fortress. 8,000 cavalry. Enough infantry to support them. They won't be trapped inside during the siege. They'll operate externally, hitting Ottoman supply lines, disrupting the siege whenever possible. Inside Krujë's walls, he appoints Vera Conti as garrison commander. Conti is absolutely loyal. He's proven that in a dozen smaller engagements. More importantly, he's competent, steady, won't panic when the walls start crumbling under cannon. Fire. The strategy is audacious. Turn the siege into a war of attrition that the Ottomans can't win. Every time they get close to a breakthrough, Scanderbeg's external forces will force them to divert troops, lose momentum, start over. May 15th, the siege begins. The Ottoman cannons roar. The sound is apocalyptic. Thunder that doesn't stop. That shakes the ground, that makes conversation impossible within a mile of the fortress. Stone balls slam into Krujë's walls. The fortifications are strong, built into the mountain, reinforced over generations. But nothing withstands this kind of punishment indefinitely. Sections of wall crack, crumble, fall inside. The garrison works through the night. Every breach gets patched with whatever's available. Rubble, timber, packed earth. It won't hold against sustained bombardment, but it doesn't need to. It just needs to hold long enough for the next phase of the strategy. Scanderbeg's cavalry hits an Ottoman supply convoy 20 miles from Krujë, burns the wagons, kills the guards, disappears into the mountains before reinforcements arrive. The siege loses 3 days of supplies. The cannons pause while new ammunition is brought forward. The garrison uses those 3 days to rebuild the damaged sections of wall properly. Stone and mortar instead of rubble and desperation. June, the Ottoman. Assault parties try scaling ladders. Waves of soldiers climbing toward the walls while archers provide covering fire. It's brutal, grinding work. Men fall from ladders, shot by crossbows, hit by thrown rocks, pushed off by defenders with long poles. Bodies pile up at the base of the walls. Some attackers make it to the top. Hand-to-hand fighting on the battlements. Swords, axes, knives, men grappling in armor, trying to throw each other off the walls. The Albanians hold barely. The defenders have the advantage of position, of knowing every inch of these fortifications, of fighting for their lives with nowhere to retreat. Murad's commanders send emissaries to Verona Conti. The message is simple: surrender and you'll be spared. Given land, titles, gold, a position in the Ottoman administration. Conti's response is shorter: no July. The Ottomans try starvation. They tighten the siege perimeter, cut off all supply routes, wait for hunger to do what cannons and assault parties couldn't. Inside the fortress, rations shrink. 1 meal a day, then 1 meal every other day. The garrison starts looking gaunt, hollow-eyed, but they don't break. And every week, Scanderbeg's forces attack somewhere else. An Ottoman garrison town 50 miles away, a supply depot, a messenger convoy. The Ottomans are forced to divert troops. From the siege to protect their rear areas, to escort supply trains, to garrison towns that suddenly seem vulnerable. The Siege of Krujë is supposed to be straightforward. Overwhelming force, superior siegecraft. Wait until the walls fall, or the garrison starves. Instead, it's bleeding the Ottoman army through 1,000 small cuts. August, September, October. 3 more months of grinding attrition. The pattern repeats. Cannons fire, walls crack, garrison rebuilds. Assault parties climb. Defenders throw them back. Scanderbeg's cavalry raids somewhere else. Ottomans divert forces. Siege loses momentum. It's a stalemate that's costing Murad more than he can afford. Not in soldiers. He has soldiers. But in time, in prestige. In the message being sent to every corner of the empire. A small fortress in Albania is defying the Sultan himself. November, winter is coming. Balkan winters are brutal. Supply lines become nightmares. Soldiers freeze. Disease spreads through crowded camps. Morale collapses. Murad makes the decision. Lift the siege, retreat to Edirne. Regroup, try again next year, maybe. Or find a different strategy. The Ottoman army withdraws. Krujë's walls still stand. The double-headed eagle still flies from the battlements. Inside the fortress, the garrison is skeletal, half-starved, exhausted, but alive. Verona Conti watches the Ottoman army disappear into the distance and allows himself one moment of something that might be hope. Then he orders the walls repaired properly, because the Ottomans will come back. They always come back, and next time the defenders might not be lucky enough to outlast them. December 1450. Adira Sultan Murad II dies. Not in battle, not dramatically. Just the slow failing of a body that's carried the weight of an empire for 3 decades. He's fought wars on 4 fronts simultaneously. Crushed rebellions, expanded Ottoman territory deeper into Europe than any sultan before him, and he died without taking Krujë. His son inherits the throne. Mehmed II, 21 years old. Brilliant, ruthless, obsessed, but not with Albania. Mehmed has been dreaming of Constantinople since childhood. It's the great city, the last remnant of the Roman Empire, the prize that's eluded Ottoman sultans for generations. Walls that have stood for 1,000 years. A conquest that would cement his legacy. Forever, Albania is a distraction. A persistent, annoying distraction, but still secondary. So Mehmed sends other commanders, not his best generals, not the full weight of imperial power. Just enough force to keep pressure on the rebellion to prevent Scanderbeg from getting comfortable. 2 Ottoman armies march into Albania, not simultaneously. That would require coordination. Mehmed isn't willing to invest in a secondary theater. First comes the force heading toward Madrid. 15,000 men, competent commander, standard Ottoman tactics. Scanderbeg meets them in terrain that negates every advantage they have. Narrow mountain. Passes where superior numbers mean nothing. Where Albanian knowledge of every trail, every ambush point. Every place the ground becomes treacherous turns geography into a weapon. The battle isn't close. The Ottomans are butchered in a killing zone they walked into blind. 3 months later, another army tries Mizad. Same result, different valley, same story. Ottoman forces marching into terrain they don't understand against. An enemy who's turned these mountains into a fortress without walls. Scanderbeg loses men in both battles. You can't fight professional Ottoman soldiers without casualties. But the exchange rate is devastating for the empire. 3 or 4 Ottoman dead for every Albanian. Mathematically, that should favor the Ottomans. They have more soldiers to lose. But mathematics doesn't account for morale, for the psychological impact of watching army after army disappear into Albanian mountains and emerge shattered. Ottoman commanders start requesting different assignments. Anything but Albania, please. Meanwhile, Scanderbeg faces a different problem. Money, victories, don't pay for themselves. Soldiers need wages. Fortresses need repairs. Weapons need replacing. The League of Leisure is burning through resources faster than Albanian lands can generate them. He needs external support. So he swallows his pride and makes the deal he's been avoiding. Recognition of Alonso V of Aragon and Naples as his suzerain. It's a humiliating bargain. He's escaped Ottoman overlordship only to accept another master. But Alonso is far away. His demands are light. His support is tangible. Gold mercenaries, diplomatic legitimacy. And most importantly, Alonso isn't trying to colonize Albania. He just wants a strategic ally who will tie down Ottoman forces and prevent them from threatening Italian interests. It's cynical, pragmatic, necessary. Scanderbeg signs the agreement and uses the gold to rebuild his depleted forces. Because Constantinople is about to fall. And when it does, Mehmed will turn his full attention back to unfinished business in the Balkans. Constantinople is gone, fallen. After 57 days of siege, Mehmed's cannons breached the Theodosian walls that had protected the city for a millennium. The last Roman emperor died fighting on the ramparts. The great city is now Ottoman. Mehmed II is now Mehmed the Conqueror. And he has time for Albania again. But Scanderbeg strikes first. The city of Berat sits in southern Albania. Ottoman held. Strategic importance. Controls key routes between Albanian territories and Ottoman supply lines. The garrison is small, maybe 3,000 soldiers. The fortifications are decent, but not overwhelming. Scanderbeg arrives with 10,000 men. The math is simple. Overwhelm them. Quickly, take the city before reinforcements arrive. Deny the Ottomans a crucial strong point. The siege begins in August. Albanian forces surround Berat. Cut supply lines. Begin probing the defenses for weak points. Then Scanderbeg makes his mistake he gets confident. The garrison is clearly outnumbered. They're not attempting sorties. They're just hunkered down waiting. This looks like a siege that'll end in negotiated surrender within weeks. So Scanderbeg leaves. There are other matters requiring his attention. Always are. The League needs diplomatic management. Other fortresses need inspecting. Intelligence from Venice suggests Ottoman movements elsewhere that might require response. He leaves the siege in the hands of subordinates, capable men, experienced soldiers, but they're not Scanderbeg. They don't have his 28 years of Ottoman military training, don't know Ottoman doctrine the way he does, don't have his instinct for when something is about to go catastrophically wrong. Eranos Isa arrives with 20,000 men. The Albanian commanders at Berat don't see him coming until it's too late. Ottoman scouts are good at what they do. Ifuz uses every trick in the manual. False information, deceptive routes. Forced marches to approach without giving the Albanians time to prepare. When his army appears on the horizon, the Albanian siege force is caught completely wrong-footed. They are besiegers, not defenders. Their formations are optimized for surrounding a city, not fighting a relief army. Their supplies are positioned for a long siege, not a mobile battle. Panic spreads. Messages reach Scanderbeg. He rides back with every soldier he can gather, covers the distance in record time, pushing horses and men to their limits. He arrives just as Eranos is engaging the Albanian forces. Scanderbeg's presence stabilizes the situation. His troops rally. They form proper battle lines. They repulse Eranos's initial attacks, but the momentum is gone. The Albanian army is rattled. Casualties are mounting, and Berat's garrison, sensing opportunity, has sighed out to join Eranos's attack. Now the Albanians are caught between two forces. Scanderbeg makes the call. Withdraw. It's the right tactical decision. Stay and fight. And they risk complete destruction. Retreat. And they lose the siege but preserve the army. They retreat. It's not a catastrophic defeat. Most of the Albanian forces survive. They conduct an organized withdrawal, fighting rearguard actions, too. Prevent Eranos from turning retreat into rout. But it's a defeat nonetheless. The first clear Ottoman victory against Scanderbeg's forces in years. And the Ottomans seize on it. Propaganda spreads through the empire. The Albanian rebel can be beaten. He's not invincible. Press him hard enough. Catch him off guard, and he bleeds like anyone else. More importantly, it emboldens Ottoman commanders. Ifos just proved that engaging Scanderb doesn't automatically mean disaster. The war enters a new phase, more aggressive, more dangerous. September 2nd, 1457. The Ottomans are coming with everything. 65,000 men under Eranos Bey. He's proven he can beat Scanderbeg did it at Berat. Now he's coming to finish what he started. This isn't a siege force. It's a field army designed to find the Albanian forces and destroy them in open battle. And Scanderbeg's alliance is fracturing. The League of Lear was always fragile. Now it's actively crumbling. Lord Muzaka has accepted Ottoman bribes and withdrawn his forces. Lord Arianetti is wavering, hasn't betrayed outright, but his commitment is questionable. Venetian agents are whispering promises to other lords. Stand aside, let the Ottomans crush Scanderbeg, and you'll be rewarded with his lands. Scanderbeg scrapes together 10,000 men. That's it. Maybe 12,000 if you count the garrison forces he's pulling from fortresses, leaving them dangerously undermanned. 16th the size of the force marching toward him. His officers are advocating retreat. Fall back to Krujë. Let the Ottomans exhaust themselves besieging fortresses. Don't risk everything in open battle against impossible odds. But Scanderbeg sees something they don't. The Ottoman army is massive. 65,000 men. That requires enormous supply trains, complicated logistics, time to deploy properly. They're powerful, but they're also unwieldy. Hit them before they're ready, and size becomes a disadvantage. His scouts report to the Ottoman army camping near Albulena. They've marched hard to reach this position. Soldiers are tired. They're resting, planning to deploy tomorrow for a proper battle. If Renos is confident, why wouldn't he be? He beat Scanderbeg at Berat. He has overwhelming numerical superiority. Tomorrow's battle is a formality. Scanderbeg doesn't wait for tomorrow. September 2nd, dawn. The Albanian forces hit the Ottoman camp as the sun rises. Not probing attacks. Not harassment. Full assault with every man Scanderbeg can muster. Complete surprise, Ottoman soldiers scramble for weapons. Officers scream orders that contradict each other. Units try to form defensive positions without knowing where the attack is coming from or how many attackers there are. The camp descends into chaos. Albanian cavalry, 4,000 horsemen, tears through the Ottoman positions. They're targeting command tents, supply depots, anything that looks important. The goal isn't to fight a pitched battle, it's to prevent the Ottomans from organizing one. Infantry follows. 6,000 Albanian footmen moving in coordinated units. They're outnumbered 6-1, but in the confusion of the camp, local superiority is what matters. 10 Albanias surrounding 3 Ottoman soldiers who can't find their units. 15 Albanias hitting a supply depot defended by 5 confused guards. Iranos is a good commander. He's trying to impose order, rally his troops, form proper battle lines. But he needs time, and Scanderbeg isn't giving him any. The Albanian archers target Ottoman officers, anyone shouting orders, anyone trying to organize resistance. The strategy is decapitation. Kill the command structure, and the army becomes a mob. Sections of the Ottoman camp start to rout. Soldiers fleeing toward the rear away from the fighting. They're not cowards, they're just isolated, leaderless, and don't know what else to do. The rout spreads like fire. Panic is contagious. Men who might stand and fight in an organized unit break when they see their comrades running. The psychology of combat collapses. If Rios manages to rally part of his force, maybe 20,000 soldiers form a defensive position on higher ground. They're organized now, disciplined, ready to fight properly. But it's too late. The rest of his army is scattered, fleeing, dead, captured. And Scanderbeg isn't going to assault a prepared defensive position on high ground with 10,000 men. He's won what he came to win. The Albanian forces withdraw. Organized, professional. They've achieved the objective. The battlefield is carnage. Over 20,000 Ottoman soldiers dead, not all from combat. Many from the chaos of the rout, trampled by their own comrades or killed fleeing through unfamiliar terrain. Weapons, armor, supply wagons, all abandoned. The Albanians spend the next 2 days collecting captured equipment, enough to outfit several thousand more soldiers. If Rio retreats with the remnants of his army, maybe 40,000 survivors. But half of them are demoralized, wounded, or so psychologically shattered they are militarily useless. News of Albulena spreads across Europe. 10,000 Albanias just destroyed. An army 6 times their size. Not through siege defense, not through favorable terrain, through sheer tactical aggression and perfect timing. In Venice, the Senate discusses whether to increase support for Scanderbeg. In Buda, Hungarian officials debate renewing anti-Ottoman alliances. In Rome, the Pope praises the champion of Christ who's holding the line against the infidel. And in Ada, Sultan Mehmed II receives the report of the disaster. He doesn't execute Avanos. The commander did nothing wrong tactically. He was simply outmaneuvered by an opponent who understood Ottoman doctrine better than most Ottoman generals did. But Mehmed understands something crucial now. Albania won't fall to conventional campaigns. Not with Scanderbeg alive. Not with his ability to turn Ottoman strengths into weaknesses. This will require patience, resources, a willingness to accept short-term defeats for long-term strategic strangulation. The empire can afford that. Mehmed has wars in Anatolia, conflicts with Venice, campaigns in the Balkans to worry about. Albania can wait, but it won't wait forever. The years blur into rhythm. Invasion, victory, brief peace, invasion again. An Ottoman army crosses into Albania. 12,000 men. They're cautious this time. No bold marches, no assumptions of easy victory. They probe carefully, looking for an opportunity to engage Scanderbeg on favorable terms. They don't find one. Albanian forces harass them constantly, hit supply lines. Ambush scouting parties appear, strike, vanish into mountains the Ottomans don't dare follow into. After 3 months of accomplishing nothing and losing men to attrition, the Ottoman commander withdraws. Omakra, another Ottoman force, this one larger. Maybe 20,000. Scanderbeg meets them in a mountain pass. The battle is vicious. Hand-to-hand fighting in terrain so broken that cavalry barely matters. It comes down to infantry grinding against infantry, both sides taking horrific casualties. The Albanians win, barely. But the Ottoman retreat becomes a rout, and the rout becomes a massacre, as Albanian cavalry pursues fleeing soldiers for miles. Ottoman losses 12,000. Albanian losses 3,000. Mathematically sustainable for now, but for now doesn't last forever. Late 1462, Scanderbeg takes the offensive. He crosses into Ottoman Macedonia with 8,000 men, not to hold territory. He doesn't have the forces for that. To raid. To remind the Ottomans that defense isn't his only option. 3 Ottoman armies try to trap him. Each commands 10 to 15,000 soldiers. Each is confident they can corner the Albanian raiders and finish this. Scanderbeg defeats all 3 in separate engagements within 6 weeks. He uses terrain, he uses speed. He uses the fact that Ottoman armies are following predictable doctrine while he's improvising based on immediate tactical conditions. The third battle is barely even a fight. The Ottoman commander sees Scanderbeg's forces approaching and orders an immediate retreat. Better to preserve the army than add to the body count. Peace. Sort of. The Ottomans need breathing room. Mehmed has other priorities. Wars with Venice, campaigns in the Balkans, internal administrative reforms. A treaty is signed. Scanderbeg will cease raids into Ottoman territory. The Ottomans will recognize Albanian autonomy within certain boundaries. It lasts 6 months. Pope Pius II calls for a crusade, a new effort to drive the Ottomans out of Europe. It's the same call that's been made a dozen times before, but Pa is passionate, committed. He's putting his personal prestige behind this. Scanderbeg answers. He breaks the peace treaty, marches into Macedonia. His forces burn Ottoman supply depots, raid garrison towns, destroy bridges and roads. The strategy is to create chaos in the Ottoman rear areas while Crusader armies attack from Hungary and Venice, pressures from the Adriatic. But Pa dies in August, just drops dead while preparing to personally lead the crusade. Without his leadership, the whole enterprise collapses. Hungarian nobles lose interest. Venetian commitment wavers. Promises of gold and soldiers evaporate. Scanderbeg is left holding Ottoman territory with an 8,000-man army and no support coming. He could retreat, probably should retreat. Instead, he decides to make the raid count. September 1463. The city of Ohrid sits in Macedonia, major Ottoman stronghold. 15,000 defenders under Sharamat Bey. Massive fortifications. Supply depots' strategic importance is the hub for Ottoman military operations in this region. Scanderbeg has 10,000 men. Not enough to storm the walls, not enough for a proper siege. So he doesn't try either. His forces approach Ohrid openly. No stealth, no deception. They make camp within sight of the city walls. Start building siege equipment. Rams, ladders, mantlets, the kind of preparations that suggest they're planning. A long siege. It's theater performance designed for an audience of one. Shiramat Bey. Scanderbeg sends a small detachment, 500 men, to raid the countryside around Ohrid. They burn farms, steal livestock, hit supply convoys heading toward the city. They're loud, visible, deliberately inefficient. Inside Ohrid, Shiramet watches this amateur hour raiding and draws the obvious conclusion. Scanderbeg is desperate. The crusade failed. He's trapped in Ottoman territory with a small force. He's lashing out, trying to salvage something from this disaster before retreating. Sherik calls a council of his officers. The Albanian is vulnerable. His forces are divided, most of them besieging us. A small raiding party hitting our supply lines. We have superior numbers. If we ride out now, we can crush his raiders and then turn on his main force while they're demoralized. One of his officers raises a concern. What if it's a trap? Sharat considers this. He's heard the stories, knows Scanderbeg's reputation for deception, but the tactical situation seems clear. The Albanians are weak, scattered, without support. It's not a trap, he decides. It's an opportunity. Mount up. September 15th, mid-morning. Shiramet leads 12,000 cavalry out of Ohrid. They're hunting the 500 Albanian raiders. The raiders see them coming. They flee. Not in panic, in a coordinated retreat that stays just ahead of the pursuing Ottomans, leading them north into the hills. Sharat's cavalry follows. They're confident, eager. This is going to be a massacre. 500 Albanian raiders against 12,000 Ottoman horsemen. The raiders disappear into a valley. Sharat's cavalry enters the valley after them, and the hillsides explode. 9,000 Albanian soldiers. The siege force that was supposedly preparing to assault Ohrid are waiting, hidden, positioned on both sides of the valley. Crossbow bolts rain down. Albanian cavalry charges from both flanks. Infantry blocks the valley exit. Complete encirclement again. Scanderbeg's signature move. The valley becomes an abattoir. Ottoman cavalry trapped in terrain that negates every advantage they have. Can't maneuver, can't charge, can't retreat, just die. Shirt realizes his mistake in the first 30 seconds, but there's nothing he can do. His forces are packed too tightly. The valley floor is chaos. Men and horses are screaming. Blood is everywhere. He tries to rally a breakout, gather his best troops, punch through the Albanian infantry blocking the exit. It almost works. Almost, but almost just means more. Men die trying. When the killing stops, 10,000 Ottoman soldiers are dead. Bodies stacked so thick in places you could walk across the valley without touching ground. Shiramet survives along with maybe 2,000 cavalry. They break through, flee back to Ohrid. The gates slam shut behind them. Scanderbeg doesn't pursue, doesn't try to take the city. He just demonstrated that he could lure 12,000 Ottoman soldiers to their deaths with a 500-man decoy. That's the message. That's the point. He gathers his forces and withdraws from Macedonia. The raid is over. No Crusader support coming. No reason to stay in Ottoman territory. D's left a mark. 10,000 more Ottoman soldiers dead. Another commander humiliated. Another demonstration that numerical superiority means nothing against tactical genius. Back in Albania, Scanderbeg assesses the situation. He's won again brilliantly. The kind of ambush military historians will study for centuries. But the strategic picture is darkening. The crusade failed. External support is drying up. The League of Leisure is barely functional, and the Ottomans just keep coming. He can win every battle and still lose the war. The only question is how long he can keep winning. The Ottoman Empire sends Balaban Pasha, veteran commander, 30,000 troops. He studied every battle Scanderbeg has ever fought, knows the ambush. At Ohrid, understands the encirclement at Albulena. He's not walking into obvious traps. Scanderbeg meets him anyway. The battle happens in broken country, where neither side gets ideal terrain. It's grinding, ugly warfare. Both armies take massive casualties. No brilliant tactical maneuvers. No hidden cavalry wings. Just two forces hammering each other until one breaks. The Ottomans break first. Balaban withdraws with half his army dead or captured. But Scanderbeg's forces are shattered too. 4,000 dead. Another 20,000 too wounded to fight. The replacements are younger now. Less experienced boys who've heard stories about Torvioll but never fought in a real battle. The League of Leah is barely holding together. Lord Ducagini is still loyal, one of the few. Most of the others have made separate peace with the Ottomans or simply stopped contributing forces. Scanderbeg's army is increasingly reliant on his own resources, his own territories, his own diminishing population of fighting-age men. May 1466, Sultan Mehmed II has finished his other wars, consolidated his empire. Now he turns his full attention to the problem that's been festering for 23 years. He comes himself, not with 30,000, not with 65,000, with everything. The sources claim 50 to 100,000 men. Even accounting for medieval exaggeration, it's the largest force the Ottomans have ever brought against Albania. The siege train includes the same cannons that broke Constantinople. The engineers are the same ones who've reduced fortress after fortress across the empire. Scanderbeg has fewer than 20,000 and no help is coming. He sends desperate letters to Naples, to Venice, to the Pope, reminding them of past promises, past alliances, the shared Christian cause. Naples sends sympathies, but no soldiers. Venice is negotiating a separate peace with the Ottomans and won't risk it for Albania. The Pope offers prayers. Scanderbeg faces the largest Ottoman army ever assembled against him with a fraction of his peak strength and zero external support. Mehmed besieges Krujë again. It's 1450 all over again, except worse. The cannons are bigger. The Ottoman army is more experienced. And Scanderbeg's external forces are too weak to disrupt the siege the way they did 16 years ago. They try. Albanian cavalry hits Ottoman supply lines, burns what they can, kills who they can. But the Ottoman logistics are too robust, too well protected. The raids are pinpricks against an elephant. The fortress holds through summer, through autumn. The walls absorb punishment that should reduce them to rubble. The garrison survives on quarter rations, then eighth rations, then whatever they can scavenge. Winter comes. Mem doesn't leave this time. He's learned, he's prepared. His army has winter supplies, shelters. The siege continues through snow and freezing temperatures. January 1467, Mehmed finally withdraws. Not because Krujë fell, it didn't. The fortress still stands. But Mehmed's achieved something more valuable. He's left behind a network of fortresses throughout eastern Albania. Ottoman administration, bureaucratic infrastructure, tax collectors, garrison towns. Albania is being strangled slowly. Territory shrinking, resources depleting, population exhausted. Another siege. Smaller Ottoman force. This time, they don't take Krujë, but they don't need to. They're just maintaining pressure, keeping Scanderbeg pinned, waiting for age and attrition to do what armies couldn't. Scanderbeg is 62 years old, still leading from horseback, still planning campaigns, but he's tired. Everyone can see it. 24 years of near-constant warfare, hundreds of battles and skirmishes. Thousands of tactical decisions, the weight of keeping a fractured alliance together through sheer force of will. January 1468. The fever starts. January 17, 1468. Leisure G.I. Castrioti Scanderbeg dies in bed. Not from a Turkish blade. Not from a cannonball. Not leading one final desperate charge against impossible odds. Malaria? The same disease that's killed countless soldiers, peasants, nobles across the Mediterranean for millennia. He's conscious at the end, lucid enough to know what's happening. The fever has ravaged him for days. His body hardened by decades of warfare, scarred from 100 fights. Finally surrenders to something he can't outmaneuver or outthink. His last words aren't recorded. Maybe there's a priest. Maybe family members. Maybe just attendants watching a legend become a corpse. He's 62, old for this era, especially for a man who spent most of his adult life in combat. He's survived longer than most of his enemies. Outlived Sultan Murad. The Cistern sand outlasted a dozen Ottoman commanders sent to crush him. But survival isn't victory. The double-headed eagle still flies over Krujë. Albanian resistance continues. But everyone knows what this means. Without Scanderbeg, the League has no center. No military genius who can turn Ottoman advantages into vulnerabilities. No commander who understands Ottoman doctrine better than Ottoman generals. The resistance will continue for a decade, but it's already over. The outcome is no longer in question, just the timeline. Scanderbeg's body is buried in Leisure. Stay. Nicholas Church. The funeral is attended by lords who've betrayed him and lords who've stayed loyal. By soldiers who fought beside him for 20 years. By peasants who never met him but lived under the protection his victories provided. The Empire he defied for a quarter century sends no representative. They're too busy preparing the final conquest. Venice takes command of Albania's defense. They're motivated not by Albanian independence, but by strategic necessity. An Ottoman-controlled Albania threatens Venetian trade routes, so they pour resources into holding what Scanderbeg built. For 10 years, they succeed. Venetian gold pays for mercenaries. Venetian engineers reinforce fortifications. Venetian diplomats manage the fractious Albanian lords who still can't agree on anything except that Ottoman rule is preferable to each other's leadership. Sultan Mahmud, to now in his late 40s, at the absolute peak of his power, brings another massive army to Krujë. This time the fortress falls not quickly, not easily. The siege lasts months. The defenders fight with the desperation of men who know they're defending more than walls. They're defending the last physical symbol of Albanian resistance. But symbols don't stop cannons. Don't prevent starvation. Don't hold walls that have been pounded to rubble. June 1478. The Ottoman banner rises over Krujë. The double-headed eagle comes down for the last time. Albanian resistance is over. The territories are absorbed into Ottoman administrative structures. The fortresses become Ottoman garrisons. The local nobility either flees to Italy or accepts Ottoman titles and positions. The war that started with Scanderbeg's desertion in 1443 ends, 35 years later, with Ottoman victory. Complete, total, inevitable. But here's what the Ottomans couldn't kill. The legend. Pope Sixtus III called Scanderbeg the champion of Christ. The title stuck in Rome, in Venice, in courts across Christian Europe. His name became synonymous with resistance against impossible odds. Militarimies studied his tactics. The crescent formation at Torvioll, the mobile defense of Krujë, the ambush at Ohrid. Commanders tried to replicate his methods. Few succeeded because genius isn't replicable. In Albanian oral tradition, the stories grew. Scanderbeg, the man. Who made an empire bleed? Who proved that a small nation could defy the greatest military power of the age? When Albania sought symbols for its national identity centuries later. When the concept of Albanian nationalism emerged from Ottoman rule. They returned to Scanderbeg. The double-headed eagle became the national emblem. His fortress at Krujë became a shrine because this is the paradox of Scanderbeg's story. He lost strategically, definitively. Albania became Ottoman. His league collapsed. His fortresses fell. The empire he fought against absorbed everything he defended. But for 25 years, he won. Battle after battle. He turned Ottoman numerical superiority into a liability, made their tactics predictable, used their own doctrine against them, proved that a small, poor, fractured nation could make conquest at expensive. The Ottomans could lose 20,000 men and raise 30,000 more. Scanderbeg couldn't. That arithmetic was always going to win eventually, but eventually took 25 years. 25 years of an empire being humiliated by a man they raised. 25 years of proving that resistance, even doomed resistance, matters. Maybe that's enough. History is full of people who fought impossible odds. Some won, most didn't. But Scanderbeg's 25-year defiance changed what people thought was possible. What matters more to you? That he eventually lost, or that he refused to surrender? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this story moved you, if it made you think about what resistance means, about fighting wars you know you can't win but fight anyway, then subscribe to Dark History Class. We're bringing you more stories like this, the forgotten battles, the impossible victories, the people who refused to accept the world as it was and paid everything to change it. Next time, we're diving into another figure who stood against an empire and discovered that courage and strategy can delay the inevitable, but can't always stop it. Until then, remember, history doesn't reward fairness, but it remembers those who refuse to kneel.